Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show. Nice little 0.7 units that we made here on Friday night as I'm recording this. Just got done watching the Mavs and the Timberwolves. Mavs with a nice little comeback up 2-0, giving those Wolves a little own medicine from the last series. I'm going to be looking at Game 3 here on Saturday with these Pacers and the Celtics back in Indy now for the Eastern Conference Finals. Obviously, the story of the night is whether or not Tyrese Haliburton is going to play in that one. He's still questionable. Lots is going to be affected by whether or not he is available for the Pacers on Saturday. But I do have 3 bets here that I think are really safe regardless of if Tyrese Haliburton plays or not. So let's jump into those and take a little bit of a look at who's going to be affected the most if Haliburton is unable to go. Kicking it off, looking at Nembhard and his numbers with and without Hallie this season, right? So a couple of things that really jump out at you. The minutes, all right, 2 more per game, not that big a deal. The points go up by 4. That's about a 50% increase in his point output without Haliburton available for these Pacers. For the attempts, also about better than 50%, about 60% of those shots go up. So he's 7 field goals with Haliburton as opposed to 11 when Haliburton is unavailable. The rebounds go down slightly, basically the same, but it is actually pretty much makes sense because you consider Nembhard's able to do a lot more off the ball and not focus on things like scoring and assisting when Haliburton's out there, leaves him free to get a few more boards. Not that big of a difference though, but the assists per game nearly double, right? Go up by about 3 from 3.6 to 6.5 without Haliburton. So you're going to see Nembhard probably be a lot more of that facilitator in the starting lineup here because I'm not sure that we're necessarily just going to see TJ McConnell get inserted into that lineup just because we don't have Haliburton. But you can see here, McConnell does much better without Hallie. So we do need to see because these McConnell props are very high right now, indicating that the books are sort of like shaping up these lines as though Haliburton is not going to play. Because right now, McConnell's at about 6.5 dimes per game, which is not something yet we've seen in the playoffs. And I don't know that he's had a 6.5 assist prop all season, to be honest with you. But they do go up. I mean, everything does. The minutes go up by about 5 per game. The points are pretty close, about from 10 to 11, not that big of a jump. Only 1 more field goal attempt. And the rebounds also pretty much the same. But the assists do jump up from about 5.1 per game with Haliburton in there to 7.3 without Haliburton on the floor or in the lineup specifically or available for any of these games. So for McConnell, there's some stuff to keep an eye on, but we want to know, one, is Haliburton actually going to play or not? Because if he does, then these props are a bit high for McConnell and for my liking. And even if he doesn't play, they might still be a little bit high, to be honest with you, because if McConnell isn't inserted into the starting lineup, we'll probably still see him playing 24 to 28 minutes. Like, they're going to keep things pretty similar here. We're going to get a little bit more Obi Toppin and Ben Shepherd as well. But McConnell, we should expect him to play above his normal minutes rate here in Game 3. That said, I want to see what Haliburton does before I place a bet on TJ McConnell. As for Aaron Nesmith, he also goes up a pretty good amount in his productivity and his output without Haliburton. Not really any change in his minutes, but you see those points go up by almost 3. The field goal attempts, just 1 more, but he's much more efficient with these things. Plus the rebounds actually go up by about 1.5 without Haliburton out there. Don't really see much of a correlation between Nesmith rebounds and Haliburton not being available. So keep that in mind that even if Haliburton is not out there, I'm not necessarily just going to start hitting Nesmith props, his rebound props specifically over. But I think the points will definitely be there a little bit more. And like I was saying about McConnell, a lot of these props right now for the others, if you will, and the guys that will come in and fill time with Haliburton either not able to play or perhaps even just limited. That would be enough to say that other guys need to step up, as if Haliburton is playing, but is clearly hobbled and not his usual self. I think you're going to continue to see things like points for Nesmith. So that's where I would attack his stuff, is maybe some points, or points for sure, maybe some rebounds, but nothing else is really going to be sort of soft in terms of the lines that we'll see for Nesmith here in Game 3. This is the one that intrigues me the most, though. Miles Turner gets completely unlocked by Tyrese Haliburton's presence on the floor, right? Everything goes down for Miles Turner as opposed to everybody else on this team when Haliburton is unavailable. Even Pascal Siakam, who I'm not even looking at here with you because everything stays exactly the same for Pascal with and without Haliburton. Not really affected by it, especially because he's playing that one-on-one stuff more than anybody in ISO and post-ups and stuff like that. But for Turner, I mean, who else is going to be running that pick and roll with Haliburton besides Turner every game, right? So without Haliburton, you've just really sort of quieted the ability, I would say, of Miles Turner moving forward. He gets fewer minutes. He gets fewer points per game. His field goal attempts go down because those minutes go down. The rebounds go down also because the minutes go down a little bit. And the assists go up by 0.2, which is pretty negligible and not something that we really need to worry about. So keep in mind that this dude, if you want to go into Miles Turner props, be a little bit careful there with those, considering that without Halliburton, he's really not the same player in that pick and roll as is his bread and butter as the pick and roll man. So let's kick it with an under for Miles Turner in this game, but we're going with the blocks there. And those do go down, by the way, as well without Halliburton, because once again, a few less minutes, not as as dynamic of a player, we'll say, without the ability to run that one play that he has with Halliburton. The blocks, though, don't have anything to do with Halliburton. They have everything to do with this Boston squad. And shout out Daft Previews as well, my boy Daniel there, who did sort of put me onto this a couple games ago, especially because he lost it in game one when Miles Turner rather, got the most ridiculous 2 blocks you might ever see. Lou Cornett brought the ball up into Turner's hand. That gave him 1 block. Then at the very end of the game, and not garbage time, but at the end of the game, Jaylen Brown is driving to the bucket and Turner's hand happens to be in the way as Brown goes up. He wasn't even trying to block it. Absolutely terrible. That was the only time ever that Miles Turner has gotten 2 blocks in a game versus the Boston Celtics. I kid you not. He's now going up against this Boston team who doesn't give up blocks, right? They do not get blocked. They have the fewest blocks against them in the postseason, 2.2 per game. They had the fewest blocks against them in the regular season at 3.7 per game. It's hard to block a team that's shooting the ball 40 times from deep, right, per game. That's where they're at right now for Boston and in these playoffs as well, just at below 43s that they're attempting per game. So it's hard to block a team that isn't really going to the basket. I mean, they go to the basket, but they're not really going to the basket nearly as much as they take those long jump shots, right? And then if you look at who he's guarding in this game, Papa Al Horford. Papa Al was blocked the 5th least in the league of anybody who played at least 50 games and had about 20 minutes per game. So like legitimate players, right? As a legitimate player, Horford doesn't get blocked, in part because he spends most of his time out on the 3-point line or at least further from the basket as well. So that's why you see Al Horford, I believe it was 0.2 blocks against him per game on the season, meaning less than half a time, right? So it's like once every 5 to 10 games, you might get a block on Al Horford, but just not very often. And that's going to be a lot of what we see here, because right now we're also talking about Lou Cornett being out probably, or at least questionable. I don't know that we're going to see him in this game. And then obviously Kristaps is not yet making a return for this Celtics squad. So the backup center is going to be O'Shea Brissett. Don't know that you want to give him too many minutes. Al Horford should be out there enough, and Miles Turner is the guy defending Al Horford in this series, meaning he's trying to block one of the dudes who's the least blockable. We'll go under 1.5 blocks for Miles Turner for a nice minus 104, by the way. Second play here is for Andrew Nembhard. This kid's been nice, honestly, man. Since about game 4 or 5 of that Knicks series, he had a little bit of trouble in the beginning of the Knicks series. Kind of thought maybe his confidence was waning with the fact that he was playing against Jalen Brunson on defense, and Brunson just kind of took him to school, man, and gave him a bunch of lessons every time they played. No shame in not being able to lock up one of the best offensive players in the league in Jalen Brunson. Now that he's out of that series and gotten his groove back a little bit, he's back in it, man. And I showed you how well he plays without Halliburton this season, like 4 more points per game, 3 more assists per game, much more the facilitator, and honestly takes over the Halliburton role, because even if TJ McConnell is out there on the floor with Nembhard, not really the dude that you want like taking long shots, which is what Halliburton does. Not necessarily the guy that's going to be as big of a threat from deep, which is pretty important for the way this Pacers team rocks this pick and roll. You need to have a threat to shoot from that pick and roll as well, as opposed to TJ McConnell, who just does most of his stuff one-on-one, ISO, and the like, right? You look at the last 4 games, like I was saying, since about game 4 or 5 versus that Knicks squad, he's at about 16 points a game and 4 boards, plus the 6 assists per game. So we are taking him for over 17.5 points and assists in this one, full unit, minus 115 that we get that on FanDuel. And I do like the fact that like his 18% usage rate should go up, right? He's doing all of this work with an 18% usage rate, not that high, something that you get from sort of like a 3rd or 4th best player on the floor. That would be their usage rate. But now you're going to see that thing go up to like 22, 23, maybe 25% in terms of the amount of shots he's taking. To be clear, usage rate means how often within your offensive possessions do you take the shot specifically, right? And Halliburton, a nice like 23 or so % usage rate, meaning he's taking the shots on offense a quarter of the time, basically, right? That's going to leave a lot open for a guy like Nembhard, who's going to fill into that role as the pick and roll ball handler and should be able to get us cleanly over this 17.5 points and assists combined. Let's get one of these head-to-head bets in here as well. You know how we do so far. 6-1 on the head-to-head bets here that are available on DraftKings. We're taking Siakam versus Tatum on the points. So Siakam here is at plus 7.5 points versus Tatum, meaning Tatum needs to outscore him by 8 for us to lose this bet. If Siakam comes anywhere within 8 points or scores more, obviously, or ties, whatever, Tatum in the points category there, we would win this one here for a full unit. Minus 110 on DraftKings. I do believe FanDuel started to add some head-to-head bets, but they don't seem to be as adept at it as DraftKings. And honestly, DraftKings has given us some soft lines with this head-to-head stuff. I love the Pascal to get his in this game at 22.5 points is his prop in this one. Tatum is at 29.5 points. I think Tatum's too high. I think Siakam's too low. So my projections for both of them are definitely keeping Pascal within 8 points of however many Jason Tatum scores in this one. You look at the way that they're defending Pascal in this series, he's kind of getting the Bam Adebayo treatment, where teams are just going like, look, Miami, in the case of Adebayo, like, you don't have anybody we're scared of, and Bam is only going to shoot twos. So if Bam's going to make a ton of twos, we're fine with that, right? We'll let him go one-on-one, play down low, and that's what Pascal's been doing. He's been either going up against Al Horford, most of the time it's Al Horford, or some Jaylen Brown in there as well. And to be honest, cooking both of them, really. And they're just letting him get those 2-point shots up without really too much contest. I mean, the one-on-one battle is there for him, but nobody's coming over to help, and he's clearly their best offensive weapon. So if he's allowed to keep going, they're just going to keep going back to him. Then I'm going to love this bet, right? I think you're going to see him get 20 field goals in this game. Even if Halliburton is available, it's a hamstring, man. You can't just necessarily like nurse a hamstring back to 100% in 2 days, essentially, right? And especially going back to Indiana with that travel. Even if Halliburton's in there, he's going to be limited in a way that they're going to rely on Pascal a ton, which means he should be getting 20. He took 17 in this last game. Halliburton was seemingly hobbled a little bit before he even came out of the game. So you know that he was looking for Pascal a little bit more than he might normally, rather than hunting his own shot. Because one, Pascal was cooking, and two, like, it takes a lot more effort for Tyrese Halliburton to run around the whole court and get his points rather than just feed it down low to Pascal, who got a ton of easy twos and little bunnies and little mid-ranges that he's great for. When he does take 20 shots, in the playoffs especially, 4 games he's done that, 4 games that he's gone over the 22.5 point prop that he has here. As long as he goes over, and even if he's at about 20 points, I think he's probably good to cover Jason Tatum in terms of the 8 points there. You look at their averages in the playoffs. Tatum's at 25.2. He's gone under 29.5 points in 9 of these 12 playoff games, and Siakam at 21.7 points per game, really close behind him, right? And now you're talking about the clear 1A alpha in terms of Siakam if Halliburton is not the same player that he's capable of being or not even out there, versus Tatum, who is also the alpha on that team. But like we already saw Jaylen Brown have two better games than him already. I don't know why Jaylen Brown would stop bullying everybody the way he is, so I expect them to keep going to him and for him to get his. By the way, we put a little plus 500 down on Jaylen Brown to be the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, which is looking really good right now, so hope that continues. And a game from Tatum that doesn't really come up to scratch here would also help us out with that bet. So I think Siakam is going to come within 8 points of Tatum in this one. We're going to take that bet here from minus 110 on DK. That is all the time that I have for you guys in this one. Definitely come through tomorrow for that live stream, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, as we're doing here on both days, Saturday and Sunday. Going to be coming at you 3:30 p.m. Eastern, so we get about an hour and a half, 2 hours or so until that game kicks off tomorrow. Obviously, game 3 there in Indy. You guys bring your bets, jump in the comments, and then we go ahead and look at that stuff together, see if there's anything we're missing. Appreciate the looks that you guys bring. I show you the tools that I'm using and everything that we go through so that you know how to help yourselves make these bets as well moving forward. Another great place to do that and get that info would be this Discord, link in the description of the video if you do want to come in there and join. A lot of great folks in there that are helping me out. Like I said, I help them out hopefully, but we put a lot of stuff together in the Discord itself, some live bets and all that. So if you do want to jump in there, description has the link to the video, to the Discord in it, and I will be back 3:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So until I see you then, happy betting.